All right, we are back on the air on Modern Rock 91.5. You've been listening to Mic'd Up in the Morning. We go all the way till 9 a.m. this morning. Right now, we are joined by a good friend of mine, Tom Leyden, from down in Detroit. He covers Detroit sports for Channel 7, WXYZ TV in Detroit. Tom, are you with us?
I am, sir. How are you this morning?
It's great. We are very good. It's great to have you on the show. We're excited for you to be here. We first want to get your opinion on a ton of Detroit issues, but I think the most pressing, even though it's been overhyped in the media, is probably the Jim Schwartz, Jim Harbaugh debacle, Royal Rumble, if you want to call it. I know you're close to the Lions. Can we get your take on that whole thing, and if the media's been blowing it up, maybe just your opinions on the whole issue?
Well, I think that there was definitely reason for upsetment from the Schwartz camp. There were some things in the past that you may or may not have heard of or know about that played into it. I think the incident that really got Harbaugh fired up more than anything else, first of all, you got to understand, it's a big, huge win for the Niners to come down here and beat the Lions. So he was very, very excited. Secondly, I had heard a story that was written in the San Francisco Chronicle that Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, and Jim Schwartz, among others, had been out at a dinner during the off season, and Schwartz was not in a mean way or anything else, but just saying, to Harbaugh, Jim, you're going to be behind the eight ball, and you don't have enough time because of the lockout, and it's going to be really hard for you, and wow, you're going to struggle. And that really kind of sat with Jim Harbaugh saying, okay, going to struggle, huh? Well, let's see how it goes when we face each other. But he's got to slow down, and he's got to be respectful, and he certainly shouldn't be as dismissive as he was in terms of, sort of pushing him out of the way after the handshake. So I can understand it, but at the same time, Jim Schwartz has to realize that that was probably not the best way to respond. I mean, an ugly incident that I think both of them regret.
Obviously both of them regret that, I think. Do you think the media has overhyped this at all? I mean, obviously you are following Detroit. It's your job, the Detroit media. The Sports Center, I think, has really overblown the situation, but that's just my opinion on it. Is that your opinion, being a member of the media right now? Is there too much going into this story, or do you feel it's well-deserved coverage?
Listen, it was out of the ordinary. You had to talk about it. You get to the point where it gets a little bit overblown, and I can speak specifically for our place that, it's in every newscast, because every producer of every newscast says, well, that's a big story, it has to be in there. So if you're sitting in front of your TV and watching it for, 2 straight hours, you're going to see it at 5 o'clock, you're going to see it at 5:30, you're going to see it at 6 o'clock, and it's going to appear as though it's overblown. So yeah, but at the same time, how do you ignore it? What do you not talk about it or not show it? I mean, it was kind of the story coming out of the game on Sunday.
Hey, Tom, this is Kyle Sislowitz here.
Hey, what's up, Kyle?
Hey, what's going on? I don't know. I mean, obviously you heard about this. The voided Lions trade that happened between Ronnie Brown and Jerome Harrison. As you know, Jerome Harrison, they found that he had a brain tumor after going through his physical in Philadelphia. What's your take on, how lucky of a guy is that if not for that trade, that his life may have been in danger in the future?
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's really odd. I mean, what jumps out at me, beyond everything else, is did he have a physical when he joined the Lions? Like 2.5 months ago? Did they not put him through the same sort of testing? Is this something that popped up in the last 2 or 3 months? Apparently the Eagles weren't even going to give him an MRI until he said that he'd been experiencing some headaches recently. So once he complained that he'd been experiencing some headaches, they said, all right, well, let's check out your head and see if there's any problems. And that's where they found it. So the skeptical side of me says, wow, I wonder how quickly this happened and how could the Lions have missed it in their physical, which they gave him back in July, early August. But all that aside, bottom line is you got to be happy that they found it. And hopefully he'll be taken care of and everything will be okay. That's all you can really hope for at this point. It was a strange day because that type of discovery, the team can't talk about, because that's a very personal, that goes beyond I broke my ankle. That's a very personal medical issue. Mm-hmm. So it was very difficult for us to get any sort of feedback from the players and the coach, because they all said, listen, we're bound by privacy. We're not allowed to talk about that. So it was a weird day in the locker room because you couldn't even really get confirmation of it. And then the injury report came out later, and they just said it was an illness. So I mean, at this point, all anybody is really basing this on is the report that came out from ESPN yesterday, and there's really been no confirmation from any other source. So they would not have gone public with it were it not real. It's not something you can guess about or fake about. So I can say this. One of the players last night, Eric Wright, said that he was in the hospital with Jerome, and he was doing well. So obviously something serious is going on there.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, this is Jeremy Erskine here.
Hey, how are you, Jeremy? Big army of hosts.
We
Three hosts here.
Three hosts in here. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so going off of the Harrison injury or medical situation, Jabba Best is down. Michaela Shore before the season got hurt. Just talk about the running situation here in Detroit. Kind of in a state of flux, aren't we?
Yeah, just taking numbers at this point. But what you're coming down to is you're going to have Maurice Morris, who's going to start on Sunday against Atlanta, and then he'll be backed up by Keelan Williams. And Keelan Williams isn't really an open field, flashing sort of running back. He's more of a power back. The one guy who you'll see back there on Sunday who might surprise you a little bit is Stephon Logan. He made this team because he could return kicks, but the darn rule that moved the kickoffs up 5 yards has basically taken him out as an option and as a weapon. So in speaking with him yesterday, he's pretty excited that he gets a chance to play a little more. But the truth be told, I don't know how often you'll see him back there. He was a running back in college who turned into a wide receiver once he got out of college. So he knows how to play running back. He knows what he's doing back there. But I'll be honest, I don't see him playing a whole heck of a lot in the backfield. They'll throw the ball. And the good news is Atlanta stinks against the pass. They're like the 27th ranked defense against the pass. So it's the perfect week for them to open it up and just throw the ball.
Yeah.
Tom.
So Lions can just call up R2 Spinner, see what he's doing nowadays.
The tooth is loose.
Can you give your assessment of the team right now after 6 weeks? I mean, I look at it as they started out really hot, getting a big win against Tampa Bay, stayed hot against Kansas City, and ever since then, it's almost been, in my mind, this kind of trending downwards with, the huge deficit in both Minnesota and Dallas, and then, they got the big win on Monday night. There's no way they're going to lose that game. And then finally the loss here in Week 6. So do you sense that kind of trending downward type of performance, or is that just me reading too much into it?
Let's see how they do Sunday. I can understand where you're coming from. And if they lose this game to Atlanta, gosh, it's going to feel like the ceiling's falling in this city. People are going to say, what the heck is going on? Because it's just been a bad week in terms of news. The concussion to Best, the news for Harrison coming off a loss. So there's a lot they have to respond to. And I think that they could make a big statement this week in stepping up and winning the game. And I'll say this, San Francisco is pretty darn good. If you look at San Francisco as a team, they have played very, very well, and they're 5-1 too. So when all's said and done, they're likely going to win the West. So it's not the most horrible of losses. And if they can step up here and go 6-1 with a bounce-back win against Atlanta, I think that says a lot. And I also think it's good that these guys lost. The last thing that this team needs is to have that, we're undefeated cloud hanging over their head each and every week, where they got to start answering those questions. At least now, they got the loss. They can move on. Let's see how they respond. But I see where you're coming from, Mike. It's almost like they're doing it with smoke and mirrors, with all these comebacks and everything else. They haven't played an efficient, solid football game where everybody in all phases of the game is playing well.
Yeah, enough of the Lions for a second. We don't have that much time with you. I'd like to get to the Tigers for a second, just kind of to wrap up their season. Do you get a positive reaction from the city of Detroit? I know it's been a tough week since they've lost and the Lions losing the same week. But overall, the sense I get from, if you want to say the Twitter nation or, just general Tigers articles coming out is that, it was a good season. We have an awesome nucleus coming back next year. We don't lose anybody that's key under contract. So do you find it as just it's a really more of a positive ending to the season for the Tigers instead of it woulda, coulda, shoulda type of thing?
Yeah, no question. And especially if Texas goes out and wins the World Series. I mean, there's a team that has been consistent, a team that was there last year, a team that stacked from top to bottom, and a team that did a really good job with their pitching in the postseason. Tigers got to bolster their bullpen. And I don't know how they're going to do that, and that's the million-dollar question, but they got to figure out a way to get through that sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth inning. I mean, obviously the ninth inning's fine, and eighth inning was great towards the tail end with Benoit. But there's still that level of uneasiness if someone struggles and they're knocked out in the sixth or seventh. But to answer your question directly, I think there is some positivity. It's funny, if there was nothing else going on, I think you would have gotten more attention to the end-of-season obit for the Tigers, but it was almost like, okay, they're done. Now, on to Michigan, Michigan State, and on to the Lions, and on to this, and on to that, and now we got Michigan State playing Wisconsin, and is William Golston going to get suspended? And, all right, then Nebraska next week. It's like this town never stops,
right.
So you can't really take a lot of time to, like, look back and say, oh, wasn't that great what the Tigers did? It was good. I think in the long run, though, you always you regret not capitalizing on every opportunity that you have. And, you know, they were there. They had a chance. They blew some games. Came down to the sacrifice fly with Miguel Cabrera, you know, thrown out at the plate. That play goes the other way. Tigers are probably up, and the Tigers probably win the series.
Yep.
Tom, just talk about what you see as the future for Jim Leyland. He's been kind of emotional this season. Maybe it's a foreshadow of his end reign in Detroit here.
It's amazing to think that he would leave this thing right in the middle of all these guys' careers, but it's ultimately going to happen. He doesn't want to have a contract more than a year, that he wants to operate on a year-to-year basis, which every year is going to bring up that very controversial topic of if and when he gets an extension, because that was the biggest story during the season this year, when he got that extension. I think it was, what was it, July? August, yep. I forget exactly. August 7th, I think it might have been. They'll be dealing with that every year. But, yeah, obviously he's at the tail end. I would guess he's probably got another 2-3 seasons, but he's got the passion. I think if he's winning, I think if the players continue to respond to him, he'll stick around. I think he did a good job. I think he did the best job in the Yankees series more than anything else. You know, being there for Game 5 in New York and seeing how he handled the pressure and how he so deliberately put on this loose facade, telling jokes, telling funny stories, little witty one-liners. I mean, stuff that you don't normally see from him. He set the tone of, like, we are not going to be overwhelmed or intimidated or tight in playing this Game 5. And that's where I think an experienced manager like him can make a difference. And so many of the players said, wow, this guy sets the tone. He's sitting there during a tense moment in a baseball game looking at the lineup card in the dugout, and he's singing. You know, it's like all the rest of us are sitting on the edge of the bench stressing out a little bit, and we look down at the manager, and he's sitting singing a song. So I think that's where his experience comes in.
Tigers have a couple big contracts coming off the books in this free agent period. Among Guillen, Maglio, Brad Penny, Wilson Bettamy, and Zumaya, who do you think is most likely to re-sign with the Tigers?
Guillen. I mean, Mags is likely going to retire. Bettamy was not the player who they thought he was going to be once they picked him up. Zumaya, unfortunately, you got to figure is done. I mean, how many chances have they given that kid? It's too bad. I mean, when he comes out and delivers the game ball during the playoffs and is not on the roster, I thought that was a little odd. I don't know if you saw that before one of the home games. He delivered the game ball to the mound. It was pretty weird. A strange dynamic because you almost got the sense that his career was done. But he likes Guillen, and, you know, if Guillen's willing to come back for an affordable price, he's shown that he's a little bit brittle, a little bit up there in age, but he likes him as a leader. He's versatile in the fact that he can play a number of different positions, but it's not going to be for a big price tag. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if none of those guys come back.
You know, I want to get you out on this, Tom. Just kind of coming full circle in Detroit. I think it's worth mentioning the wing season started, and I'd love, you know, if we had all day to talk about the Michigan State weekend. But, you know, do you feel that the city maybe is getting even more hyped up for the wing season, maybe due to the fact that there's going to be no Piston season, or maybe due to the fact that just Detroit sports are on a pretty big high right now? Do you sense, you know, a really big season coming for the weekend, or excuse me, for the Wings, and maybe a potential run at the Cup? I know you're probably a Wings fan more than any other team here in Detroit. So, are you particularly excited about this Wing season?
Ultimately, I am. I got to say that most people down here, frankly, are not there yet. Are not mentally with the Wings yet. There was so much going on, and there almost still is so much going on that it's like, oh yeah, and the Wings are playing too. And, you know, they started out so hot, and the schedule's been weird where they haven't played games, and they finally get back on the ice tonight. I don't think they've played since Saturday, so It's just been really weird. There's no flow with the Wings. And, you know, they've come out and they've played well, but people really haven't had a chance to embrace it yet. And I think they will. It'll come. And when everything else starts to die down a little bit, they'll be a little bit more focused on them. And they got parts that you're a little unsure of this year. You don't know how how some of these players are going to fit in, and who's going to step up, and who's going to do what's been done by these veteran players for so long. You know, who's going to fill that role of a gritty Draper, and who's going to step up and fill the role of Rafalski, and is Ian White going to be the answer, and is Commodore going to do all right? So there's questions that you need to pay attention to. But with them, you hate to say it, but it's almost like, all right, we'll see you in April. And that's when the real season begins.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I really want to thank you again for coming on the show with us. I know you're extremely busy, tons going on in Detroit. To make time for us here on Mic'd Up in the Morning is greatly appreciated. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Oh, no problem. You guys do a great job. Hope you enjoy it. Enjoy every day that you're on, because you'll look back at these days and absolutely love them. Remember when we did that show back in college? You'll love it.
Well, thanks again. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.